shopper. You'll enjoy views from the infinity pool, hot tub, and fireside lounge. Get your ticket by calling 800-816-6108.
Across California with Nikki Lorenzo. This is Inside California Politics.
Glad you're with us this week. I'm Nikki Lorenzo in Sacramento. It has been almost 30 years since we've seen a competitive race for governor here in California. We actually go back to 1998. This was before we had the top two primary system. Two Democrats were spending millions battling. Congresswoman Jane Harman and wealthy businessman Al Checky. The underdog in that race was the sitting lieutenant governor, who polls had in fourth place behind the Democrats that I just named, and also a Republican. That underdog was Gray Davis, who went on to be the 37th governor of California. And Governor Davis joining me now here on Inside California Politics. Mr. Underdog, thanks for being with us. I feel like with your history and your past, you're a perfect person to talk to about the current race that we're seeing right now. And I'm sure you've been following the headlines. The head of the California Democratic Party, other Democratic leaders are calling for the lower polling candidates to drop out. Do you think that they should drop out right now?
Well, let me answer this way. I am not going to ask them to drop out, because when I was running way back in 1998, tons and tons of people asked me to drop out. And that obviously was fuel to the fire. I worked harder, I worked smarter. We got a lot of breaks, and I ended up winning pretty handsomely. But in 1998, like April 1st, which would be tomorrow, to April 8th, a poll was taken. I was at 12%, Jane Harman was at 18%, and Al Checky was at 19%. Now, a number of things happened in between that allow me to overtake those two, but if you're not in the race, you can't take the breaks that may come your way. So it would be hypocritical of me to turn around now and tell people they should get out of the race.
But do you think the party leaders should be saying that?
Well, I think there's a number of ways to narrow the field. First of all, the press and the natural will focus on what they view to be the front runners. Secondly, if I'm a donor, you don't have to give to everyone. Give to one candidate, maybe two. If I want to invite some of the candidates and not all of them to an event I'm having, I can do that. There are a lot of ways the race will just organically start to narrow.
Is there a particular candidate, as you're looking at the field, that you say, that's me, that was me in the race right now?
Well, I have so many friends in this race, which is one of the reasons I almost certainly won't endorse. But by the way, I have said I'm happy to answer questions confidentially. A few candidates have taken me up on it, and I've given them my advice. They'll either take it or they won't. But I mean, Betty Yee was my director of finance. She went on to be a state controller for 2 years. Mayor Viragosa was my assembly speaker. You know how important a speaker is to the success of a governor's legislative program. And he was on and became a good mayor. So there are lots of people I have relationships in the race. So I'm not going to discourage them from getting out, but I do think there will be a narrowing process. And the odds are like 20% that two Republicans will win. Well, that means it's 80% that they won't win.
That was going to be my follow-up question to you was, all these headlines and the coverage that we're seeing, the big reason that party leaders, Democratic Party Chair Rusty Hicks has asked for the candidates who don't have a viable campaign to drop out is this chance that we could see two Republicans advance to the general election. Do you see that happening?
I just kind of answered that question. I don't think that will happen, because I do think that the nature of a race where a lot of people want to be with a winner, and a lot of people will just hold their support if they're candidates, even though they like that candidate is not polling well enough. So I just think the forces that normally surround a campaign in what will be the last 62 days of this one will come into play, narrow the focus, and greatly increase the chance that the winners of the primary will be one Republican and one Democrat.
Well, the reason I asked that question is that's just getting a lot of attention right now. California, there's going to be two Republicans that could advance. Why do you think that is?
Because about 60% of the state sees themselves as either Democrat or independent. And so the possibility of a Republican being one of those two, or possibly the two Republicans who will get the permission to go to the general election, is upsetting. We have to remember why this system was put in place. It was initially run on the ballot, I think, in 2006. It created not precisely the election we have now, but you could vote for any candidate. Everyone got the same race, and the notion was more moderate people would be elected, and I certainly put myself in that category. Arnold, I certainly would say, was moderate. I think Jerry in his third and fourth term would be seen in today's world as moderate, maybe slightly left. And Newsom maybe slightly more left, but nobody's crazy. Nobody's, trying to bring down the whole capitalist system. Everyone is kind of working within the norms. That, I think, was the original intent, and by and large, it has worked.
So there's discussion that we should get rid of the top two primary system by both Democrats and Republicans. It sounds like you wouldn't be in favor of that.
No, I wouldn't be in favor of it, and let me tell you why. Ronald Reagan was a good governor and became president of the United States, had very little in common with Tip O'Neill, the speaker, but they were both Irishmen. He invited Tip over for a drink every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and they found out there were a few things having to do with education and parks and healthcare that they agreed on, and they actually got things done for the people of America. And I believe, Nikki, that's what most Americans want. They don't want a whole bunch of reasons why the other party is too intransigent, and that's why you who were elected couldn't get anything done. They want you to figure it out, and if you can't figure it out, just step aside